Ooh, that feels so good.
Okay, ready, Robin?
Almost. I'm just gonna move these over close to my brain. I wanted the evolution and credibility, the history of how you got to your history.
It just sounds so good. Love it.
You like
My
that?
question would be
Yeah.
something about, can you describe the evolution of the developmental vacation
Well,
model of treatment?
Back in.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of places we could go, but you chose this area. Why?
Yeah, this is a pretty familiar spot for me, and I first started coming here in 1994, and uh, at that time, the culture was different. The world was a little bit of a different place. I was a fairly new psychologist at that time as well, and had pretty much anticipated that I would be doing a fairly standard psychological practice. I'd been doing a lot of forensic work, a lot of custody work, and traditional psychiatric hospitalization work. I've been working in the outpatient community mental health settings, and at that point, though, I fortuitously had the ability to be introduced to wilderness. But it came at a time of, I guess we could say, of great tumult in the wilderness world, the wilderness treatment world, because there had been two fairly poorly run wilderness-oriented programs. I have a hard time defining either of those as being treatment programs, but there were some fairly catastrophic results that put individuals who wanted to do treatment in the wilderness in kind of a precarious situation.
Pause. Sentimental value to you, but this particular area is beautiful. And what does that mean to you? Why does it say it's starting here? So specifically to you, what is this area?
And we'll get to the others too.
Yeah, this is an area that since coming here, there are many obvious kind of indications, and it's become a fairly well-camped area since I first started coming here. But it was very easy to discern that this was a place of some significance to the indigenous folks who were living here, long before any other individuals were here. And you can see why. It's an absolutely scenic, serene place to be. There's water reasonably close to this area. Over the years, in the time that I've been here, I've seen a lot of deer in this area as well. So, for me, if I had been here as one of those indigenous people who lived in this area, particularly during the wintertime, this would be a place where I'd want to be. I could live here through the winter and be reasonably comfortable. And so over the years, obviously there have been a lot of students that I have worked with that have been camping right here in this area. This area has a kind of a colloquial name that we gave it. We used to call this area the Throne Camp because there is a collection of rocks here that is somewhat shaped like a throne, and so that's why we've called it that. And it is one of my favorite areas in this field, and for me, it's easy to feel the history of this place and recognize that there have been people that have lived here. There have been people that have had to deal with the circumstances of their lives at the time when they were living here and working through the troubles and the vicissitudes that they encountered in this area as well, and living in a somewhat primitive fashion, much the same way that we would expect that students living in a wilderness-oriented treatment program would.
And that is valuable for the treatment because?
Well, the treatment that we're talking about is learning how to live life in a genuine fashion. That really is what we're talking about. And there really was no other way of living than fairly genuinely when one was here during that period of time as an indigenous person. And so being here in the wilderness for individuals who are receiving treatment and are part of that treatment process means we get to a place where there are very, very few places to hide, that every aspect of life now has meaning, that I need to figure that out. And for someone in particular who has been living their life of avoidance and has been avoiding the business of their lives, have been avoiding those tasks and the challenges that they could have encountered that would assist them in learning how to live life more genuinely and developing character and developing knowledge and competency and wisdom and the capacity to manage difficult things. There really isn't a better place. It's not as though we come out here and we sit and we talk about another way to live, that we live here and we learn how to live here in a genuine way. And obviously it won't be near as austere as it may have been for the original people who inhabited this area, but we can ride on the coattails of that, and the tasks of everyday life become something that is novel for those students who are out here in treatment. And learning how to manage those in a genuine way is certainly incredibly important for their individual development and their maturational progression.
Summarize this: living genuinely in this area, in a remote area like this, is essential for therapy.
What do you need, bud?
How? Give me a second. Grace, while we're interviewing, you're okay. You can hold off. Okay?
Run over there by the fire.
Yep.
By Tab.
Or go talk to mom, please. Okay.
So you need to water a bush or something? Is that
Go if you need to go pee, Ray. She's going on behind the tree.
plenty of places to do that, buddy? Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Finish that.
Okay.
Finish that. Hang on, I want to finish that one thought, please. The connection of genuine living and therapy.
Yeah, well, so much in the culture and society in which we live now is just a distraction. And so much of our culture and the material that we encounter on a day-to-day basis is primarily a quest for entertainment that moves us away from any genuine interaction or a genuine capacity to develop wisdom. And it's one of those things where in our world, knowledge is so readily available, but the ability to apply that knowledge in a practical manner is somewhat limited. And living in a sphere, in a somewhat primitive environment like this, there are fewer places to hide. There are fewer origins of entertainment only kinds of events. There are less distractions. And yet at the same time, if I'm out here and that's all I know, when I originally show up, that's what I'm going to be doing, is still looking for those distractions and still looking for some way to maintain my life in that familiar fashion. But, being in a place where it's harder to hide, and where if I'm not learning how to live my life in a more genuine fashion, no one else is really compensating for me. I'm not learning the skills that I need. I'm lagging behind. And I'm having to deal with the anxiety that goes along with that I haven't really learned how to deal with in the past. Someone else has always shielded me from my anxiety, or there's always been something else that I can do to distract me from my anxiety, or I find that I'm in an environment where I can just kind of dissociate away from my anxiety and isolate myself or whatever it might be, and really not that negative of consequences as a result of that. And in the process, I'm not learning how to grow up and show up to be the human being that I need to be in my own life.
Now the connection.
Yeah, so go back to the beginning of why wilderness illuminated itself to become that tool that you have developed and perfected over the last 30 years. So
And apply it to you. Like this, look at you.
Yeah.
He's a freaking mountain man.
And I don't know about that, but
it seems like the symbiotic nature of who he is and what this place has to offer.
Well,
together.
and what has become of that, how that became to be the tool that you used and you've experienced now for 30 years. So kind of go back to that evolution, that beginning place where not only wilderness was in a tight spot, but psychology was. There was a lot of transition in psychology at that time, out of the traditional clinical settings. And anyway, start there, where that had happened when you graduated and then had the opportunity to come out here.
Less about what happened and more about how it affected you and the situation.
Well, and also how the developmental piece illuminated itself, how that came to be, right? Because you'd been trained that in college, and you understood the neuropsychology and the developmental psychology. You layered it somewhat in hospitals and clinics and adolescent detention centers, but why and how this became. I mean, you started out about how you were introduced to it, but then how that merge of, because the piece that Justin wants us to make sure we bring up is the credibility of the clinical understanding of the developmental vacation and you as a human being, as a professional. So both what Malcolm was bringing up, but also a little bit of the history of that connection piece, because that wouldn't have happened had you wouldn't have discovered wilderness if you hadn't gotten thrown into it, right? I mean, it was kind of an odd ask. Hey, do you want to be a therapist out in our wilderness program we just bought? And that was and actually that company was the first one to put therapists in the wilderness. Isn't that right?
Not entirely. What's its name? The program that's
Anasazi?
no.
Okay, well then don't worry about that piece. Then just I want to make sure that we focus on why the developmental vacation is what we're going to be marketing. So I think
wilderness is the solution.
And well, no, it's not. No, we're not actually marketing wilderness as a solution.
Never mind.
This is not Star Guides. This is just that curriculum. So parents that can't afford wilderness, that can't do treatment in the wilderness. So what I'm trying to do is bring the understanding that has come to him through the wilderness experience.
It's the question.
Way longer than you did.
Yeah, but Montanans, doesn't matter how long we live anyplace else, we're still Montanans. I think the best way to talk about this and understand it would be, for me personally, the transformation is that, here I was working with adolescents in other settings, in residential kind of settings and in lockdown settings and in psychiatric hospital settings, those kinds of things, and encountering adolescents in treatment at that level seemed to, more or less just compel an adaptive orientation with those individuals. It was all about, just get me out of wherever it is I am right now, just get me out. And it was a synthetic kind of an environment. There was no way to live a genuine life in those environments. Particularly adolescents who had become involved with the juvenile justice system and those types of things, the adolescent lockdown, the more juvie style places were not safe for adolescents at that point to render themselves vulnerable and explore very sensitive components and unresolved core issues that they just really couldn't address in those environments. It was more, what do I need to do in order to look stable enough and get regulated on my medication so that I can, move on out of this environment. And the nature of the interactions with parents in those situations was also very limited and very contrived, and it was difficult to get a real sense, a complete sense of, here's the dynamic that's driving this family, right? And here's how they are avoiding living their lives. Here's how the family dynamic is oriented around the designated patient, so to speak, and the different roles that come from that. That was difficult. It was very difficult to discern in those limited kind of residential style environments. And watching adolescents and being able to reside with them closely and being privy to the nature of the communication between adolescents and their parents during the time that they were in treatment really was a nice transition for me and assisted me in helping me to recognize that with adolescents in particular, when adolescents turn up for treatment, it really is a developmental issue. It really is a maturational issue. It was easy to see, okay, these are kids who are struggling because they're not growing up and they don't know how to grow up. They don't have the tools that's necessary for them to conduct their lives in a more mature and effective fashion. It's not there. So the combination of living in an environment where the ability to acquire those abilities, to acquire those skills, the ability to mature became incredibly important. But the other part that became equally important was being in an environment where we can address the family and parental dynamic at the same time. And it was nice because we could separate parents and kids and have the luxury of being able to do that and coaching parents and addressing family issues separate from what was going on with the kid. And then, helping the family find an alternative interactional pattern that would help them disrupt the old pattern and replace it with a more functional pattern such that, okay, now we have a treatment modality that actually allows some experiential changes to take place. The child is living their lives differently. The family is living their lives differently. Now, we're looking for that transition where we can integrate the two and continue down a different path. But I think probably in all of that, the most significant component was having a front row seat to watch kids who were on this developmental vacation, as we were able to define it, and recognize here are the practical markers that note, that demonstrate that here's a child who is struggling because they're not growing up. And seeing those markers and knowing that we have an environment in which we can address those and help them move beyond that developmental vacation, help them be able to engage in their lives at that level that would be appropriate for their age.
Awesome.
Well, at the
All right, I think we're on a good spot here.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah, so again, I think the most significant component of all of this was being able to identify specific markers that would be indicative that we're moving beyond this life of avoidance, that we're moving beyond, merely looking for a life of distraction. And, really the language that we developed during this period of time was recognizing, gosh, these were kids that as long as they were in that immature place, they were filling their lives with dependencies, and they were becoming, particularly gifted at ensuring that the dependencies that they needed would be available when they needed them. And I guess if there were, if we were to, there are multiple factors, but if we were to look at one aspect of the wilderness that was so effective in assisting the treatment of those kids on a developmental vacation, was the fact that their traditional dependencies were not necessarily available to them in this environment. And it was easy to identify the patterns of behavior that they had solidified within themselves over the course of the years, in their abilities to try and evoke dependencies, even living in a rather primitive environment. So stemming from that then, obviously we were able to coordinate our efforts and recognize, hey, there is an ability to introduce treatment aspects here, the kinds of treatment that needs to take place in an atmosphere outside of the wilderness. I obviously have some tremendous biases, and I imagine I will, have that core sense of myself as well, that I truly do believe that the wilderness is the best place to do this. But I recognize, for practical reasons, that's not always available to parents and to kids that need treatment. And my preference would be, if I had a preference, I would be spending, as much of my life as possible sitting out here by a fire with a student doing the work, right, and helping them and training staff and training other therapists and these modalities. That would be my preference. But I also realize that that's not possible for everyone, and at the same time recognizing, well, these markers that we have been able to observe in the wilderness are available to see anywhere. They're pieces that allow us to understand that children really do have developmental tasks that need to be accomplished, ideally at particular points in their lives. And their lives will move forward in a much more healthy fashion if they can resolve those tasks at the time when it would be ideal for them to do that. As kids get older and as they become more rigid in their patterns of entertainment and distraction seeking and avoidance and things like that, it becomes harder and harder and harder for them to be able to accomplish those tasks. So whether or not we're doing that, like here in an environment like this, or in some other environment, even if we're trying to treat this with the family in the home environment, there are those same kinds of markers, and it's the same kinds of interventions that disrupt those old patterns that are the most effective. And it's good for parents to be able to have that language that we've developed and to have that system that we've developed as a means of keeping things consistent and as a means of helping them recognize, okay, is it actually having its intended effect or is it not? Is my child still much more adept at turning me into a dependency than allowing me to be a parent? Do they still have the ability to ensure the delivery of the other dependencies that they have in their lives? It's those kinds of things now that we can measure because we have a system that allows us to do that. We have a language that allows us to do that. And I would say it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, right? That, understanding human development and healthy development as a maturational process is, obviously something that many, many authors and theorists and, psychologists before me have illuminated. But, I think the piece that we have been able to do well is coordinate that system that allows not just the therapist, but the adolescent in treatment, the parents who are part of the treatment, the entire family dynamic to recognize, okay, we're making some progress. We can see that it's working, and if it's not having its intended effect, we can usually dial in, this is why it's not working, and here's the part that still needs to be disrupted. And are we able to disrupt that, or is there some other kind of measure that needs to be taken in order for that disruption to take place? And it's nice to have that system and language that unifies those efforts so that everyone involved is on the same page.
All right, introduce this. I'm Doc Dan. We have an opportunity that's going to help you disrupt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how to say that really. As I sit here and think about this, and I think of, okay, there have been so many families and there have been so many kids in 30 years, and there are so many ghosts of dysfunctional coping that continue to haunt these woods, right? That got left here, and and this is a good place for them to be, forever. That kids have left it here, and there are so many tears that have watered the ground out here. Not just tears of students, but tears of parents, and tears of staff members, and I would almost have to put it, there have been so many sacred experiences that have taken place out here that in 30 years' time, I would like to be able to bring that material and bring those experiences and bring that knowledge and bring that energy to parents everywhere who are struggling, and particularly those that have lost hope, and recognize that there are those occasions when, in spite of our best efforts, it's just not gonna go the way that we would like it to, but yet at the same time there is some hope, and there have been celebrations, and there have been families that have been reborn, and there have been individuals who have found ways to show up for their lives, and who are now living living as parents in their own families, as successful in their careers and managing their relationships well, and telling their own children about the time that they had to go out and live in the wilderness, and showing them how to do a bow drill fire. And I do think that there is hope. I do think that there's hope, but it has to be hope that is put in a realistic direction, and recognize that it's not the magic. It's not the magic. It's not the magic of the wilderness, but it's the ability to have a place to learn how to live a genuine life and to be the human that we believe that we have been destined to be. And, for me, it's been just a tremendous experience that, it's one that I wouldn't trade, to have had 30 years of being a part of watching other humans, my brothers and sisters, transform their lives into something that has become so much more gratifying for them and so much more productive and successful for them, and watching them get to a place in their world where they are genuinely happy with their ability to live their lives. It's been a tremendous experience for me, and it's one that I would want to share, and hope that I have the capacity to be able to do that in the best manner that I can.
That lighting likes to move.
Yeah, it looks like the sun's gonna peek out here in a minute.
Enjoying life?
Okay, no talking, bro.
When do you remember when so and so did this? Or when we go camping and we're in an area that it's like, oh, I remember this one student who did this here. And I don't remember a lot of the names anymore. The names have kind of faded, but I remember, I think most of us talk and we remember faces, we remember experiences, we remember how hard they struggled. I think that's one of the things that's really stuck with me for as long as it has, is just how strong the families and the clients are that come to treatment, that go through this, because they are in pain, right? That nobody comes to treatment, wilderness, residential, whatever it might look like. Nobody goes to those things, looks at those programs because things are going well in their life. It's usually, I've tried everything. And so by the time I'm meeting you, it's usually I'm last on a long list of therapy experiences that you've had that haven't worked for whatever reason. And one of the things that I absolutely love about how I've learned how to do therapy and how I've learned how to exist in this industry is being able to recognize that pain and hold it, in this space, and allow for it to be left here. That I don't need to carry it, they don't need to carry it, and we can work through it and move forward. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons why that's what sticks out when I'm in this, when I'm here, is it's like, because that's what's here, that's what got left here. The joy, the happiness, the excitement, the hope got taken with them. That didn't get left here. And so I think that's why I remember the hard pieces, is because that's what we hope doesn't go with them.
Tie that in
Mm-hmm.
to the fact that what has been learned here in the wilderness and what has been left here is now applicable through this new curriculum
Mm-hmm.
that we're now offering. What was accomplished here is possible to be accomplished
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll just use some language that, I'll just share some language that I use with parents, is the part that's so hopeful is that it is a developmental process. And that if we can re-engage in that developmental continuum, we absolutely can learn other other things.
Mhm.
But if we stay locked in the dependencies and locked in the, what we know, we don't ever progress out of it.
Poke at it.
This will go in a little better here. For ya. Get this all burned down.
How many kids are in that group?
Probably 6 or 7.
Which one?
They're
Did
just
you
really
see it
quiet.
from here?
Yeah, they're just right around the corner.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, and I'm like, you can't hear them at all.
And my family is around there with them.
Oh, they're that way, I think. They went that way.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was surprising because usually you can hear them.
They're yelling.
They're yelling, and I'm like, are they up?
Maybe it's early in their
It's
freezing.
noon? Like, what's going on?
There's some pretty young kids that
That's-
go up to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get back out of the shot here.
You can join me.
Well, I was just thinking, probably should have just had Tiana do this because everybody else is the same.
Do you know what do you remember the breakdown of what's in each of the chapters?
I have it on my phone.
Because you could maybe do the intros out here, the recaps, but we were talking, we can do it in we can do that in a studio.
Yeah.
It might be kind of-
Tying it back in.
So coming back to tying them together, the things you've learned here
Mm-hmm.
and the things
The
that
curriculum. Why the curriculum?
and why is it possible to now do it
Mhm.
without a wilderness environment?
Mm-hmm.
Or why it's important to have it?
Less why, more it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, with I guess the evolution of the developmental vacation over the last several years, one of the things that has been discussed and that we've looked at and talked about and really wanted to create was the awareness and understanding that this is something that can be used anywhere. Like I said, I use it in my private practice. I'll be sitting even with adult clients and be working with them and have this kind of aha moment of, oh, hey, we're stuck, right? Like we're stuck in this ego state, or something is going on for you where we weren't able to actually move past this, and this is where we go when we get uncomfortable. And so the curriculum that we've created and the trainings that we are offering for parents and staff and therapists and really anyone is about taking what was developed in this wilderness setting and being able to say, like, hey, it works anywhere, because it's not really about where you are, right? It's about how am I looking at this in my life, and how am I taking this kind of foundational understanding of human behavior and development and changing it, being able to say, okay, this is where I am right now, and what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my child, that I'm working with, or my client, or if I'm a staff member, the people I'm working with in the program, or whatever that might look like. That it doesn't really matter where I am. If I have an understanding of what developmental vacation really is, I can use it anywhere. I think for me, the struggle is not using it all of the time, because you can't turn off that part of your brain. And so I meet people and it's like, ooh, we're avoiding right now. What's going on? And so it's about understanding yourself. And by understanding yourself and understanding how it fits into, how the developmental vacation fits into your life, and recognizing those pieces in you, then you can actually work with other people and help other people do the same. Again, whether it's my child or a client, that I am able to help you go through that same understanding.
And we offer that, and this is what we're going to do.
That's-
and there's hope.
that's
No,
Robin.
Say that. There's hope. Say that.
There's hope.
Come on. Put yourself in a position. You're going through struggles.
Mhm.
There's hope. This is the solution.
Should we
Don't-
do that? Can we do that with both of them, or do you want to just do it with her?
Well, do we have everything else?
do those
I think so.
jumping in the air. There's
Right? And the slow motion freeze frame, rainbow over the sky.
Yeah.
I think we're okay here. Why don't you scoot in there?
Jump in there.
And let's take that. That's right. We can't see the hair.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna have
Okay,
to
then.
move over just a little bit.
Yeah, if we need to switch, this side of my body's already on fire from being that close. But
It's a little hot.
Already on
It's
fire.
a little warm.
no, it's just warm.
That's a warm fire, man.
Yeah, it is.
There's
Should have brought wheat. Made some scoops.
So ask him the question.
Could have done that. I
Could
don't.
have not. I didn't think about it. Didn't think about it.
I have any of that.
What's behind you? What is that?
This is an address.
I moved it so that it wasn't bugging my hat.
Oh, okay.
All right.
That's why people don't take me seriously. I just sound like, you know, what's wrong with you, dude? Like,
Amen. I'm excited. All right, parents, there is hope in this darkness, this place you're in. I understand. I know what you're talking about. There is something we can offer. Go.
well, so here at this point, when we're both revisiting the old stomping grounds here,
Right.
more or less, it's, you know, and kind of reviewing what this has been all about. What would be the piece that you would want to share with parents more than anything else? You know, because my guess is that in the form that this is all going together, that primarily it's going to be parents that are going to want to watch this, or that, well, will be watching this, I suppose. Yeah. So, is there like a specific message that we could encapsulate all of this that we've been saying and say to parents? You know, I think I would say there's probably a way of looking at this and addressing those issues that have been so difficult that you may not have heard before, right? There's another way, and even if having been frustrated with previous approaches to treatment and things like that, if they've not been exactly what has been needed, then let's try looking at it another way.
Yeah.
That there is some hope. You know, there really is. You know, I know that there are situations out there that are incredibly intense
Yeah.
and incredibly troublesome, and the chaos that can be a part of a family system can be so overwhelming and intense. And a lot of times it just helps to know, well, there might be a beacon here. You know, there's maybe some we can look at that we haven't yet.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm thinking how, when I first meet parents, you know, and I'm working with their family, that's kind of the message, right? That again, it's usually I'm next on a long line of therapists that you've worked with,
Yeah.
and things that have hopefully helped in some way, but obviously haven't been exactly what the families needed. And you know, for me, it's a lot of acknowledging that this is hard. There's no part of your experience that is great. You know, that this is a really hard thing. And as much as I would love to be able to give, like, here's the magic button, here's the magic pill, you just do this one thing and everything is solved, right? But it's this understanding that I still have a lot of hope. You know, that I have never met anyone, any family, any situation where I've thought, nope, can't help you. You know, that there's elements of, like,
Well, if they're willing to do the work.
if they're willing to do the work,
Right.
and that's the piece, is there's
that is the
hope.
part.
There's absolutely hope, and I definitely believe in the curriculum that we've created, and this, you know, the therapeutic experiences that we've had, that it works and it's there, and there is hope for families. And there's that caveat of, if you're willing to do it with me, you know, that
Yeah.
I can't do
that's
this,
the thing.
but I am 100% right there with you. And I will hold on to the hope if you can't right now, but just trust that we can get through this together. And when there's elements of, you know, families, parents, students wanting to go through this and really dive into the developmental vacation, that, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it certainly can be more than just amazing. It's miraculous at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, for me, I want to hang on to that. I tend to be somewhat of a curmudgeon just in general in my life. but I've had enough experiences, even during those times when we're thinking, man, I don't know how this is going to work, but we stay with it, and wow, so there have been some tremendously gratifying circumstances that have evolved
Yeah.
within the families we've worked with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that would be the message too, is that it may help to step back and have another way of understanding what we're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even another way of approaching that whole notion of intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is, not anything that I would say is, way out of the box, so
Right.
to speak, right?
It's not new.
No, not particularly. It's just all of that material aggregated into a language that we can teach everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to have a degree to really understand this and use it in your life. That we've taught adolescents and
The ones
young
with the
adults
degrees
and
are the ones that
parents.
have the most
It's
trouble
true.
with
It's
this one.
true. Yeah.
Because they always want to, no, let me add my little flavor to
Yeah,
this.
and it's
Which is
not
cool, but-
complicated enough. I need it to be
Yeah.
more, right? And
Yeah.
but when
It's like,
I'm
no, wait, where did that come from? That's
Yeah.
not disrupting things.
But
yeah.
when you're working with families and parents and kids and staff, like it just works, and
Mhm.
it makes sense when you let it make sense. It's I agree with what you say, that therapists, we tend to try to make it more complicated, but it definitely, this understanding of ourselves and of human development and behavior and intervention, like you said, it can definitely bring a sense of peace, I think, for parents, even when things aren't going well, or not following the path they'd like it to go down. That I've had parents that have been able to say, you know what, I'm okay. I'm okay, and I feel more at peace than I ever have, even though our situation may not be exactly where we want it to be.
Yeah. But now I understand it in a different way.
Yeah.
And so now I can be okay in all of this. Am I saddened by
Yeah.
the nature? Yeah, of course, right? And I may need to deal with that ongoing grief that I have associated with, well, there's a potential that we might have enjoyed, but no, it's
But
not going to be a
that's not
part of
where
it.
we
And it's
are,
just a
yeah.
reality that we have to deal with. But I can be okay with that because I understand I have a way of conceptualizing it, for what it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what it more genuinely is, as opposed to, being this tremendous albatross that I'm wearing around my neck.
Yeah.
And I'm being punished by that. Yeah.
So your sales pitch was a clause that says, hey,
We are not,
Expecting
if you
this.
want a sales pitch, Robin,
Yeah, why don't we get her in the chair?
we are the therapists, right?
Yeah.
We're going to approach it with like, look, yeah, we can, if.
it's a disclaimer. Hey guys, here's my sales pitch. Disclaimer.
Yeah,
It's like, okay.
that's, we are not the salespeople.
No.
No, I love the realness of it and the
Hi.
conversational piece
Hi.
of it. So no, this is great. There's a lot of I'm being facetious.
I know.
More than I need to be, but yes,
Dexter.
you there is
Well,
something stronger.
let's try it one more time. This time I want you to think, Dan, self-promotion. You're terrible at it.
Hate this.
Try it.
Hate
We're gonna
this so
try
much.
it this time, both of you. Self-promotion.
Hate everything about that.
I know, but the piece.
Lay down.
though,
Okay.
They don't want the dog in the
Less-
shot.
They want the dog in the shot.
Less
Yeah.
to you
I think he's got
to
cactus
this.
in his foot.
Okay, it's worked.
Check his foot when he gets there.
We have a solution.
And he doesn't have to be as long drawn out. Just say, look, I'm sitting here because,
The two things. Don't keep it short and sweet, and
Keep it
simple,
self-promote,
stupid.
right? Like, yeah, these are great. We're great at this.
because legit, it works. That's what I say every day. I couldn't sit on the phone 8 hours a day, 365 days a year if I didn't know for sure this works. I know it does. I've seen miracles. Children that there's no way that should have worked. And it does. And it's a developmental process. It can work. You said that. So think that. Self-promotion, curriculum, we're launching a curriculum because we know it works, we've gotta get it to more people. This is too hard, one kid at a time. And parents have asked for it, they need it. Something like that,
I'll start.
You want to start this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Focus
Well-
here.
right here, both of you, look, up here,
We're conferring real quick.
in a minute, after that. Okay, read each other's eyes.
Also, I was just thinking of starting with talking about that piece of remembering families and the success stories and
Yeah. Well, I
He alluded to it a little.
I think more than anything, the reason why there is this hope, why we can have some hope, is because, man, we've seen this work. We have seen this orientation have its intended effect, and I would not attribute that to like me being a particular genius of any sort, right? I maybe want to give that to you, but I don't think that I'm particularly gifted or smart or whatever that might be, but I have been able to watch this have its intended effect over 30 years in varying settings. You know, obviously, wilderness would be my preferred setting, but I've watched it, and I've watched as we have altered other programs, so to speak, to adopt that kind of guide, not a God orientation, the developmental vacation model, and watched how it has transformed not just the students that they're treating, but also the staff, the therapists, the parents, and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So it's nice being able to say, hey, we're not just this is just some snake oil that we sat down and drew up at some point and think, this looks good. This
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
good. In theory, this sounds really good. I think part of this is, man, we've watched this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And we've had parents for 30 years saying, man, how do I access this information? Is there a book?
is there a book?
Who
Can
could
I,
I
yeah,
read?
can I read more? Yeah.
Yeah, and that part's been tough. So I think it's nice that we now have a format that, let us present this to you in a format that might be a bit more digestible.
Yeah.
But knowing that this is not just something that we sat around one weekend deciding, oh yeah, this sounds good. Here's a great theory. Let's propagate this. No, we've watched this work and we've fine-tuned and honed this for 30 years. And, I think both of us came into this with a reasonable amount of education and training as well, right? So that it's not like this is our first rodeo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We've been able to do this now for a while.
Yeah, and that we've seen it work, like you said, in kind of a lot of different areas and that the evolution of the developmental vacation process has happened not just with clients, right, with students, but it's happened as we're working with families and parents and staff. That's also been a huge piece of it is, the people with
Right.
boots on the ground, helping us understand what does this look like in the day-to-day process. And
Transforming like organizations.
Yeah.
even. Yeah.
and that
that's been
and that
great.
it's really helped. It's helped a lot of people, and and I laugh when you said parents asking where can I get more of this, right? Because they're like, what books can I read? And I was like, my answers, I was like, well, go talk to Doc Dan and tell him he needs to get that book written, right? But being able to have this format, I
Yeah.
think is going to be helpful for a lot of people.
I hope so.
And
so.
again, that belief in this works because we know it works. We live it, right? We do this. We've done this for years and have seen how it's been able to impact families in ways that other interventions just for whatever reason weren't. Yeah.
Didn't have that same impact. Transforming lives. Yeah.
That's good.
You got passion.
Hey, good job. Got passionate.
Nah, it's,
Oh, I didn't
as I've told you,
Uh-uh.
Just kidding.
the reason why I wanted to do this format, and part of it was, I think it was just
Come over.
finally getting to the period where we
You can
were both at a place
You
where
can bow if you want
we
to.
could do this, where I didn't want to do this without Tana, without doing it in the discussion format. So all the modules that we've been recording, it's been us doing
Talking.
that so that we have that energy between us. And yeah,
Well, it's
So-
perfect.
that's how we do that.